I want to tell you about a photograph. 5 men, matching smiles, sunset behind them, and every one of them is lying. They made the most peaceful-sounding music of the decade, while quietly taking each other apart for 9 straight years. 10 betrayals, documented. Some of them are on records you already own. And number 1 is the night 2 of them stood 6 feet apart, singing about love, promising to kill each other the second the curtain dropped. Let's go.
I looked around and for a reason when
10. The man who built the sound, fired halfway through.
I was confused.
I need to start somewhere that surprised me, because I always assumed the trouble started with the fame. It did not. It started while they were still hungry. Glyn Johns. If you do not know the name, you know the fingerprints.
You needed me, it's true. I needed you.
The man had already worked with the biggest bands in Britain, and he is the one who took 4 unknown Americans and taught them what a record was supposed to sound like. Their first 2 albums, that clean, precise, gorgeous thing they do, that is him.
You even called me friend.
And here is the part I did not know until I started digging. Halfway through making their 3rd record, they fired him. Mid-album, On the Border ended up with 2 producers listed on the sleeve, Glyn Johns on 2 songs, Bill Simjek on everything else, because the group wanted a harder, rock-oriented sound instead of the country rock feel of the first 2 records.
That I could almost see eternity.
They flew to London to work with him. They flew home without him. Henley's explanation later was that they simply wanted to sound American rather than English. That John saw them as a nice, semi-acoustic country rock band, and every time they wanted to rock and roll, he could name 1,000 British bands who did it better.
You gave me strength.
Okay, I love this part. Because listen to what actually happened. 2 of John's recordings stayed on the album anyway, including Best of My Love, the song he made, the song they kept. Their first #1 hit in the country was made by the guy they had already decided to cut loose.
And gave me dignity. I cried.
And I know you know this feeling. When somebody helps you become the thing you wanted to be, and the very first thing that new version of you does is decide they are not coming with you. That is the pattern. Right there, in 1974. Nobody is safe, not the producer, and soon, not each other.
You cleared my mind.
9. The beer Bernie Leadon is the reason the Eagles exist, and you have probably never thought about him for more than 10 seconds.
I looked around and for a reason when
He was the country in the country rock. Banjo, pedal steel, mandolin, the whole toolbox. He is the one who suggested the name. And by 1975, he was watching the band he helped build walk away from everything he loved about it. The producer on one of these nights put it plainly. They were getting more and more rocked out, and Bernie was less and less happy about it.
just what you wanted might have been that it.
Henley admitted the resistance became a real problem, particularly between Bernie and Glenn. So here is what happened. Frey's version is that they were backstage after a show, Frey animated and adamant about what the band needed to do next, and Bernie walked over, poured a beer on his head, and told him to chill out.
But if time
That is it. That is the whole gesture. No speech, no door slam. A cold beer, straight down. And here is the part that gets me. Leadon's own version is a little different. He says it happened at a band meeting, that he had already announced he was leaving, and he told them, let us play good shows to prove how good we can be, and then I will be gone. He was not throwing a tantrum. He was signing off. He was out by December of 1975. Joe Walsh replaced him the following month.
I don't know what I might.
You just smiled. I know you did, because I did the same thing when I found this. Years later, Leadon looked up his own Wikipedia page and found that the beer was essentially his entire legacy. Nobody talked about his guitar playing, just the beer on Glenn's head. 50 years of extraordinary musicianship, and history kept the beer.
1320 North Columbus was...
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story. The hit that became a punishment. Randy Meisner wrote a song on an acoustic guitar one night after coming home from the Troubadour. Just a few lines. Nothing finished. He could not complete it in time for the album, so Frey and Henley helped him with the lyrics. And the thing they built together became one of the most beautiful things this band ever put on tape. It was the first Eagles single where neither Frey nor Henley sang lead. Randy's falsetto, out in the open, right at the end. That note. Now, here is what I did not understand until recently. He did not want it. Meisner was naturally shy. He struggled with the increasingly overbearing personalities of Henley and Frey. He was watching his marriage come apart on the road. He said it himself. They wanted him standing in the middle of the stage to sing it, and he liked being out of the spotlight. And this is the part where I have to be careful with the word I use, because it is not difficult, it is closer to cruel. Frey was insistent that Meisner perform it in concert for the fans, and those live performances became a source of enormous contention between them. Eventually, one of the reasons Meisner left the band. He was struggling to hit the crucial high notes during the Hotel California tour. According to Joe Walsh, Meisner could actually sing it, but he would get nervous the moment he was told he had to. Think about that arrangement. Every night, in front of 20,000 people, the thing you are most afraid of. Scheduled, non-negotiable, and I know you have had a version of this. Smaller. The specific details are different. The feeling is not. The thing you were good at becoming the thing they hold over you. Some songs do not just sound like longing. They were made out of it. 7 Knoxville, June 1977. Knoxville, Tennessee. The band had been on the road roughly 11 months. Meisner's ulcer was acting up. He had a bad case of the flu. The show went well, the crowd loved it, and they were being called back out for another encore, and he said no. He was too sick and generally fed up, and he decided he was not going back out. The crowd is out there, chanting, and the man they want will not stand up. Frey was livid and called him a name I am not going to repeat. Meisner swung at him. It got bad enough that security had to physically pull them apart. And then, after they let Glenn go and were still holding Randy, Frey grabbed a towel, wiped his face, walked over and threw it in his. And here is what stays with me. It is not the punch. Bands fight. It is what came after. They limped through the rest of the tour, and Meisner was completely frozen out. Even after he offered Frey a sincere apology. He was gone by September of 1977. Now, and I want to be straight with you here, because this channel is not in the business of repeating things without checking them. There are people who have gone back through the published concert reviews from that night and argue this whole account was shaped by Azoff and Henley in a later biography, and that the story we all repeat is not what actually happened.
She was dancing right in time, and
which honestly tells you something all by itself. Even the fights have competing versions. Even the wreckage got edited. But nobody disputes the ending. He was in the band, then he was not. And a song about pushing yourself past your own limit was the exact thing that broke him. 6. Note for note. You know this one. We all know this one. That solo has been voted the greatest of all time by actual guitar players. But sit with me for a minute, because where it came from makes it sound different on the other side. In a good way, and in a slightly heartbreaking way. Felder used to record instrumental demos at home, 15 or 16 ideas per album cycle, and hand them out on cassette. The Hotel California demo was made in his back bedroom with a 12-string, him playing bass, and a Roland drum machine, roughly sketching out a part between himself and Joe Walsh. A sketch, a guide, placeholder ideas. He has said it directly, it was just a guide solo, and he expected to build the real thing with Walsh in the room. So they get to Miami, Felder and Walsh set up facing each other, trading lines, pushing each other, exactly the way he had imagined. And Henley stopped everything and told them no. That is not right. That is not what is on the demo. And here is where it gets absurd, and I love it, and it also tells you everything. Felder did not have the tape with him. He had to call his housekeeper back in California, get her to find the cassette, play it down the phone line, and transcribe his own improvisation off a long-distance call. The greatest guitar solo in rock history. Reverse-engineered from a phone call, because a drummer refused to let a guitarist change his own idea, and Felder has admitted Henley was right. The notes landed exactly where the chord changes wanted them. That is the whole band in one story. Genuinely brilliant instincts, applied with absolutely no room for anybody else's. 5. The long one after Hotel California. They had the biggest problem a band can have. They had won. Henley put it about as honestly as anyone could. They needed a vacation, they needed time away from each other, and they did not take it. They started recording in 1978. It took 18 months and 5 different studios. Henley said they were completely burned out, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and creatively exhausted, and they had barely any songs. The gap got so long that staff at the label started joking that the album should be called The Long One. That is your own record company laughing at you. And here is the detail that stops me cold. By the time they gathered in Miami in 1979, Henley and Frey were barely speaking. These two, the engine, the songwriting partnership that built the entire thing. Henley later described it as arguments over creativity and lyrics, angry words, and underneath it all, a question about whether everybody was carrying his fair share. He said everything had become drama, that they were all too strung out, and that what they really needed was a group psychiatrist. They admitted years later, on camera, that drugs were actively wrecking the creative process. And it still went to number 1. It still gave them a Grammy and their final chart-topping single. That is the cruelest part, honestly. The world kept telling them they were fine. Nothing in the sales figures said stop. I have watched people do this. Keep going because the outside metrics are good, while the inside quietly rots. And I know you have watched somebody do it too. 4. The dinner. Don Felder wrote an instrumental he privately called Iron Lung because the wheezing sound reminded him of being sick as a kid. He put it on a cassette with a batch of other ideas. Frey and Henley loved 2 of them, that one and the music that became Hotel California. Felder, Frey, Henley, and J.D. Souther worked up the lyrics at Frey's house.
In my mind and in my car,
It became Victim of Love, and Felder was going to sing it. Everybody else on that album got a lead vocal. Frey had New Kid in Town. Walsh had Pretty Maids All in a Row. Meisner had Try and Love Again. Felder had nothing. This was his.
I met your children.
They let him record it. Henley's position was that it did not meet the band's standard. Fine, bands make hard calls. Here is how they made this one. While Henley laid down the final vocal, their manager Irving Azoff took Felder out to dinner and told him what was happening at the studio. Read that again slowly. They did not tell him no. They sat him down in a restaurant, put a menu in his hands, and let a third party break it to him over the appetizers while somebody else sang his song. I know what you are thinking right now, because I thought it too. There were 5 of them. Any one of them could have picked up a phone. And this is the part that makes it complicated. Felder himself said it was a bitter pill, that he felt Henley was taking the song from him, but that there was no arguing with his own vocal against Don Henley's. He agreed with them. He just never forgot how they did it. That is what I meant. I cannot hear that song now without hearing a man at a dinner table. 3 Harmonies, courtesy of Federal Express.
There is moonlight in malls.
Now, I am about to go slightly out of order, and I am doing it on purpose. Stay with me. The band had already come apart when this happened. But they still owed the label a live album. A contract does not care how you feel. And this is where you can actually hear the damage, if you know what to listen for.
And I had love.
Eagles Live was mixed by Glenn Frey and Don Henley on opposite coasts. Frey in Los Angeles, Henley in Miami. And as producer Bill Simjek put it, the harmony and instrument fixes were made courtesy of Federal Express. Courtesy of Federal Express. Simjek had an assistant sitting in Los Angeles with Frey while he flew the rest of the band to Miami. He described the process as fixing 3-part harmonies by shipping tape back and forth. The reason was simple. They had decided they could not bear to be in the same state, let alone the same studio. This is a band famous for one thing above all else: blend. Voices locking together so tightly you cannot separate them. And by the end, those harmonies existed only because a courier company kept the tapes moving between 2 men who would not share a zip code. And the goodbye, I promise I am not making this up. The album credits listed no fewer than 5 attorneys. The liner notes said simply, "Thank you and good night." 5 lawyers, 4 words. The Rolling Stone Record Guide later called it possibly the most heavily overdubbed live album ever made, which is another way of saying, the last thing they ever gave us was a document of togetherness, assembled by people who were not together, in rooms 3,000 miles apart. 2. The letter. "14 years later, hell froze over. They came back. And it was glorious, and the tour was enormous, and for a while it looked like the story had a soft ending. It did not. Felder's later lawsuit argued that the seeds of the next split were planted in the reunion itself. He said the band had previously divided revenue equally, but that Frey and Henley demanded a new structure favoring their partnership, and threatened to fire him before the reunion started unless he agreed. He signed, and then he spent years watching it get worse. He complained that they had set up a separate company to handle a career retrospective box set with no involvement from himself, Walsh, or Schmidt. In his suit, he described their greed as becoming more insatiable with every project. On February 6, 2001, a letter from manager Irving Azoff informed Felder he was out. A letter. After 27 years, a hit he wrote the music for, and the greatest guitar solo most people can name. A letter. He called Joe Walsh looking for support. Walsh told him there was nothing he could do. Felder later said, plainly, that it broke his heart. He sued for wrongful termination and breach of contract. Frey and Henley tried to block his memoir. It was delayed for years and finally came out in 2009 as Heaven and Hell, My Life in the Eagles. In it, he refers to Frey and Henley as the gods. Henley's response was that Felder was simply bitter and had written a cheap shot. The case settled quietly out of court, terms undisclosed. And when they later invited Leadon and Meisner back for the History of the Eagles tour, Felder was pointedly left out. The Brotherhood did not just break. It stayed broken on purpose, for the rest of their lives. 1. The Long Night at Wrong Beach. July 31st, 1980. Long Beach Arena, California. It was a benefit for Senator Alan Cranston, and the whole thing had been Frey's idea. Felder was not thrilled about the band wading into politics, but he wrote later that if the gods wanted to do political campaigning, he was not in a position to argue. Before the show, the meet and greet, the senator working the line, thanking everybody. And Felder, as the senator and his wife walked away, said, "Nice to meet you," then muttered, "I guess," under his breath. 2 words. That is the whole fuse. Frey heard it and smashed the bottle he was drinking against the wall. He said later, on camera, that by the time they walked on stage, he was seething and wanted to kill Felder.
I know you won't let me down.
Now, the house lights go down, 12,000 people, and this band walks out and starts playing the most gentle music in America. Felder's account is that Frey came over during Best of My Love and told him he was going to kick his ass the moment they got off stage, and they kept singing, in harmony. Frey's version has Felder turning around and saying, "Only 3 more songs till I kick your ass, pal," and Frey answering, "Great, I cannot wait." They counted it down, on stage, in front of everybody. It got bad enough that the sound crew started killing Frey's microphone between vocals, so the audience would not hear what he was saying. This is the part I still cannot get over. Somewhere in that arena there was a kid at his first concert, hearing those voices locked together, having the best night of his life, and he had no idea he was watching a marriage end in real time. Frey said it out loud years later. They were out there singing about love while both of them were thinking, as soon as this is over, I am going to kill him. That was the moment he knew he had to get out. Off stage, Felder took his guitar and smashed it against a concrete wall. Frey's response was to remark that of course he would break one of his cheapest ones. Felder got into a limo and left. The next day, Timothy B. Schmidt picked up the phone and called Frey, and Frey told him the Eagles were finished. That is it. No press conference, no farewell tour. Henley later described that night as a 4-hour exercise in interpersonal tension. 14 years of silence started with a phone call and the word finished.
Earrings lay against your skin.